All right, we're going live. The Bishop and I, we're live. We're in the game like EA Sports. Now let's go to Facebook.
Oh, that's
Facebookian. Yeah.
You didn't have to stay there, you know?
No.
Cool.
And I want to, I'm going to start by, I'm going to start by playing this. This is in a minute. It's so live. That thing was getting down, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shoot. Let's see here.
In Ghana.
Yeah, I'm live.
Now. We're live. Yeah. Now.
You know what I'm saying?
We're ready to do this.
You know what I'm saying? Let's see here. How we doing? Okay. Oh, wait. That's not what I wanted to do. This is funny. All right, here we go. Let's see here. Bam, paste. Let's do it. Oh man.
Oh, let me
Tag
me.
Oh, I'll do that right now. What's going on, Facebook? Facebookian. Let's see. I need to tag the Bishop here. Let's see here. Is it not letting me? Oh, here we go. Invite friends. I'll invite the Bishop. Boom.
There it is. There it is again.
Uh-huh.
Oh, turn that down.
That's all right. We're good. Let's make sure we're good over here. All right. Perfect. So we're now on Facebook and on and we are live on Instagram as well. Great. Well, as always, my brother. Hey, can you guys that are listening, can you let us know if you can hear us well? Hey, what's up, Dr. G? Oh, hey, listen, let me just start with this. This brother right here, I found his podcast. He was interviewing Bishop Fletcher, Terrell Fletcher.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how I found the podcast, but I was listening and I was like, man, there's something about this brother, man. So I went to his podcast. It's called Black Like Me. And man, he's in Wisconsin. I'm from Minnesota. So we got that Midwest thing going on or whatever. But man, the brother's topics are on point. He always interviews good people. His perspective is phenomenal. He's actually in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I'm just.
Oh, he got one. Well, we could say Terrell is not really Pastor Bishop. Terrell's not really a native San Diego, but he got a San Diego though.
Yeah.
Because he's here now.
Yeah, I think Terrell is from Kansas.
I thought Missouri or somewhere. Well, yeah.
But he went to college at Wisconsin, so I think he's a Badger. So from there, he joined with that's it, Dr. G. As they say, the mid wicket. So anyway, man, I just want to encourage everybody. Go listen to this podcast. It's called Black Like Me. We're coming up on the third season. I said, please, brother, can you please get the third season started? And he does prison ministry. He has an incredible meeting. They go through a 9-week session where he invites all white folks to come and talk about all the stuff that you and I talk about, man. Talking about the things that need to be fixed, Black history,
right?
Just unbelievable. So great dude. Love what he's doing. Of course, Dr. G, anytime. Thank you for joining the video. So just good. So Black Like Me on the podcast.
Black Like Me.
Black Like Me.
I'm black.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, So as I always say, man, it's always good to be able to sit with you, brother. You are one of my favorite brothers, period. And I'm honored to just be able to kick it with you, man, weekly. I love watching what you do in the community. I like what God is doing in San Diego.
Amen.
Grateful that he's using us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? However small.
That's right.
But we're doing our part.
That's
And
it.
I love it. I love seeing you on the news. You be on there just giving it to him. I said, "Go on, Bishop." And you too big. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing to you. So I said,
Please, man, don't get me in trouble here, man. But no, likewise, man. You know, I ever since we met, you know, you've been right on point and
Right
stuff.
on,
so
thank you.
So I really admire you and look up to you, even though I'm older.
Yeah, that's all right. Hey, man, I look up to you, brother.
What do you
I
think
do.
about this? Let me go see what Jason got to say about this,
No,
man. Because if he's I know he's gonna have the right thing to say, and then I can follow right along.
Yeah.
I get my talking points.
Yeah. No, man, you push me. You push me. Your answers and your perspective is well researched. And one thing I find that lacks a lot with our people is too much emotion.
Yeah.
And not enough good information. So I thank God for you, brother, and just happy to be here. For those of you that have joined us, thank you for tuning in right now. We appreciate it. Absolutely appreciate it. And so as y'all can see, every week I try to wear, you know, my different shirt.
I should have wore something.
I mean, it's okay, brother. This is just my thing. So my daughter is a student at the Howard University.
There you go.
The real HU. You know. My wife, that's the Howard call. So that's the Howard thing.
All right.
So my daughter and my money, our daughter and our money goes to Howard University. So yeah. So but there's something right now I just wanted to bring up, and that is they are there's a whole gentrification piece happening right now. See, it's happening everywhere, but there's a big deal right now where people are letting their dogs walk by Howard's campus and just drop deuces on their just crap on the yard and stuff. People are walking their dogs through the campus and all that. And instead of like respecting and honoring the university, their perspective is get out of here. Like y'all can, you know, just move if you don't like what we're doing. It's like move. Howard been here since the 1800s. Like, are you kidding me? But that's the colonial mindset. That's that colonial mindset that says we do whatever we want to do, and it don't matter what you say. And so the students have been protesting, and you know we turned up right now, and in DC is real. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And one person said sometimes the only way that a lot of these oppressive mentality white folks listen is if you give them the business. And we got some youngsters nowadays that will give you the business. You know what I mean?
That's always been with the youngsters though, man. Even in my days coming up, man, I'm a little, you know, I'm tame now, but even in my days, I want to. I go on the news and just go in this studio and tear it up. You know,
man, that's real. That's real.
But you know, that was the attitude. You know, but that's y'all young people. They don't play around.
But and I think it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is, and whatever. But the hope is that the leadership at the great Howard University will step up and address this issue, and have to do something about it because it's disrespectful. That's one of our prized possessions. And,
absolutely.
And this is probably not the best time to test the young black folks.
Yeah,
you know
especially during this time.
Oh yeah. So
in DC too.
Yeah. So I just had to rep the real HU, never to be mistaken for Hampton University. Howard University is the real HU. You know. So anyway, so wanted to just get that off my chest quick. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today was, and I'm still kind of doing some research on it. Right on, brother. Hey, what's going on, Kenya? HU, that's right. What's up, Tammy? How you doing?
And by the way, Tag, we got a good mic here now, so I don't have to speak out loud. You know, but I'm loud anyway. My wife,
If he starts yelling, I'll just put on the little emoji.
There you go.
You know.
There you go. My wife always get me when I get on the phone. It sound like they way far away, so I'm like yelling so they can hear me. But they're right there. But tag somebody right now. Share, invite. What's that thing they do? A watch party or whatever. Do all that so that we can get folks in here and listen to our show and support it. We call it show, but we just basically live streaming, trying to have a conversation, community conversation with those that want to talk with us. But spread the word, get it on out there. Let's bring more people in here so we can have a conversation. Absolutely. Positive people.
Absolutely.
We don't need no negativity. We're blocking you.
Right. Oh yeah, we will. But and by negative, what we don't mean by negative is people who oppose.
Yeah, you can oppose.
There's nothing wrong with that. We believe in opposition. That's actually real dialogue. You don't have to agree. And this is just our views. We could be wrong. So one of the things I wanted to talk about.
We don't need no trolls.
Well, that's very true. We don't want you. You know what I'm saying? We don't want you. One of the things that I wanted to kind of bring up was this whole Democratic versus Republican Party issue, right? And who is really for the Black community. And I always caveat the Black community by saying, I believe we have Black neighborhoods. We don't really have Black communities, right? Because the communities where people all come together for one purpose. Right. A neighborhood is just a place where people live. And I think right now we're in a transition from a neighborhood to community, but I think we're still in a neighborhood phase. But just for the sake of understanding the point, which party is really for Black people? And as I began to do some reading, just in a nutshell, what we see over time is a transition. I think widely Americans were Democratic just in general in the beginning, but they were called like Democratic Republics or some
Democratic Republic,
something like that. And then once the split came, the Republican Party did the real shift or the split, if you will, between the North and the South really kind of happened three ways. You had Democrats, you had Southern Democrats, and then you had Republicans. And the Republicans thing was they didn't want slavery to push across the West, and so they fought against that. And so, but I think that's the point where people stop. People say, yeah, well, it was the Democrats that wanted you on slavery and stuff like that. And if you just look at it from the surface, that does look like what happened. But I think more so what happened was what I think happened was financially. I think politics is always about finances. I mean, at the end of the day, they make decisions based on money.
Exactly.
Right. And so
how do you think Obama got it? It wasn't, they saw beyond his rate because of economics.
Right. It's all economics. And so what happened eventually was because of the friendliness of politics, the Southern Democrats even became more hostile. They cemented their allegiance to the Democratic Party once the Republicans started doing some of the social reform stuff.
Exactly.
Giving Blacks the right to vote and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Until it wasn't until and I should have wrote this down, but there was a point in the political switch where you started seeing Republicans becoming more conservative, fighting against immigration and those type of things, and the conservative values of financial conservative
became Republican.
Yes. Well, the conservative part of the Republicans about the borders and about money and about not being responsible. A lot of Americans were upset during the Great Depression because Republican government was really about protecting the rich, which is still pretty much the case. And so what happened during that time was the Republicans didn't really come to bail out the folks that were really hurt by the Big Depression. Right. A lot of Americans got upset, but because they started moving towards a more conservative viewpoint in life, that's where a lot of the Southern Democrats joined the party and started becoming Republicans. There's a lot more to it. I'm still reading it because there's a lot of. I mean, that's a real
it happened over time, and I know at least the part that I'm familiarized with as far as dealing with what we deal with. It goes back to the 60s and it goes back to Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill.
And they didn't want that.
And they didn't want that. You know, he was a Democrat from the South, but, he was trying to do the right thing. And a lot of those folks didn't like it. And so, over time, you start switching parties and so on. And so now that's why you have Republicans, very conservative in the South. And, a lot of times they're racist. They want to continue to uphold that system of oppression. But the thing that I want to say is I like the way Malcolm X said it, when he was talking about the Democrats and the Republicans, the Southern and the South and the North and all that kind of stuff. And he compared it with, you know, when you talk about a canine, whether it doesn't matter whether it's a what did he say, a wolf or a coyote. It doesn't matter. He said you're still a canine, you know. Yeah. So it doesn't matter north or south. Still racist, man. And there was Jim Crowism even in the South, Washington D.C. There was Jim Crowism, you know. So Jim Crow was a little bit everywhere, and from what I'm hearing, you know, a lot of that started in up north. You know, the South picked it up from there. So when you talk about these parties, I see. That I was at Democratic Club today, the Point Loma, whatever they call themselves, a Democratic Club, where Tasha spoke. And most of them pretty nice and voted majority for AB 392 and things like that to support that, and vote against SB 230, which is the police bill. They voted against that and so on. All white people, a little older, but there were like this one older white woman in there that kind of, you know, represented the old guard, and she's voting against everything when it came to these reform bills and so on. But yet she was in the Democratic Party and so on. But that's the kind of mindset that it used to have. Things are changing, you know, in the sense of waking people up with reform on both sides of the spectrum when you look at that. But I think that when it comes to race and when it comes to economics, let's talk about this, because let's look at reparations per se. You know, when 80, I could have it wrong, but I think it's about 80% of white people are against reparations, right? About 53% blacks are for it. And so even when you talk about reparations, something that is due to American descendants of slavery, of all the things that we've done, and a lot of times we think reparations, we think we're just talking about cash, even though cash I think should be included. It includes a whole lot of other stuff, you know. And but even when you talk about that, Democrats and Republicans oppose it. You know, is it because it's going to benefit black people? I mean, what is the issue here on that? But, you know, the movement is really making some headway, you know, in the sense of putting pressure on politicians and so on, that to move them into having a discussion about it, but not only moving them into having a discussion about it, but also trying to get some things, you know, get some of these politicians to really like build a platform on it to get some things done as far as getting a bill passed on that. But the point I'm trying to make with reparations is that both parties oppose it. And then the sad thing is that you have many black people, because like Claiborne, one of the top black political leaders up in the Congress, got in trouble because, you know, reparations ain't gonna happen and all that kind of stuff. But then he's catching a lot of backlash behind that, because black people are starting to look at this now and say, hey, wait a minute, y'all got a point. We got a point. We always thought about reparations, but we're bought into the racist narrative. That'll never happen, man. Ain't gonna give you nothing. So we just dismissed it. But my thing is now is like what we're dealing with in our communities, the things we're fighting for and the system we're coming up against. We got to fight every day for this, because people think that reparations just deals with giving me a check, even though I think it should include that. But it's dealing with schools, education system. It's dealing with the financial institution. It's dealing with real estate. It's dealing with the political arena. It's dealing with every arena to bring equity, right? Because when you talk about the racial wealth gap between whites and blacks, you have to look at how I think it's like blacks are lagging behind 15-1 when it comes to equity. And so when you look at that, we got to start fixing a lot of things. And I do believe that black people, especially American descendants of slavery, we should be treated as a special class. Special class people. When we go apply for a job, we should be on top of the line. When like your daughter at Howard, that should be already paid for. She should be at the top of the line. The Howard, exactly. It should be paid for. It should be paid for. And she should be at the top of the line and getting into the school because she's at ADOS. And I believe with those when you look at those type of things and so on. So when you look at this arena, and when you talk about reparation, I'm not the expert on it, but I read their research and the information and learning every day on it and so on. This is powerful, man. And this is something that I think people need to look into to really see that when you talk about blacks and the equity and what we're dealing with and all the racism that's coming up against us, we need this. Well, we need this.
So, and I agree. I think if we look,
but racism, and the point I not just interject a little bit. But the point I was trying to make here is that Democrats and Republicans, when you talk about these parties, you know, unless they get on board with that and really start defining something, I'll see them all the same.
Well, you know, it's funny because one of the things that the Republicans are known for is like busting up slavery. And with the busting of slavery, we get the 13th Amendment, right?
Exactly.
Right. And here's what the 13th Amendment,
and it didn't end nothing.
Well, here's what the 13th Amendment says. neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. So it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States, except for, right? Or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So slavery is not supposed to exist except for when the crime is committed, punishment for a crime. So slavery really hasn't been abolished. What has been
Thank you.
So what has happened, as you see through Reconstruction and some of those other things, if the government was so into helping Black people get free, then we wouldn't have had to wait until 1965.
Both parties benefit.
Right
Exactly.
Right? So white women got the right to vote in 1920. Black people didn't get the right to vote until 1965. And so my father was a grown man, a really grown man. He was 33 years old when he was first allowed to legally vote.
And let me ask you a question in regards to that. Like when you, not the father, but in regards to white women and feminism. I always say this stuff wrong.
Feminism.
Yeah, feminism. When you look like in the 20s when white women got that vote, why weren't they fighting for the Black women? They didn't care. You read the woman that led it up, she didn't care nothing about Black people. And so now, Black women jump on board with this feminist stuff, but it's really not there to help them.
I know some of the Black sororities.
And everybody at the table, right?
Some of the Black sororities, that's females, sororities, specifically like the Deltas. That was one of the things that they're really known for is helping during the women's suffrage movement. And Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony were the two that they give credit to moving that the way it is. And even Sir Frederick Douglass had his hand in the women's suffrage movement, giving white women the right to vote. And so what we've seen forever is that Black people have always been in the midst of trying to help everybody else to get free. And so that's why I think for you and I to focus primarily on our issues. But I think when we look at, just to put this in the bucket and we can move on to the next topic, that I think when it comes down to it, neither the Democrats or the Republicans have the Black interests at heart. And people say, well, they shouldn't. We're just one people. But when you look at throughout history, when you look at the ability to purchase property, and what they have is like a wealth gap. What are the Black families actually worth? And Black people haven't had the opportunity to amass the types of wealth that white people have. And so white people say, well, there's a lot of white people that don't own homes. I get it. But when you look overall at America, who owns a majority of the wealth? It's white people. And it's because they had a head start. And so you look at like when they did redlining, when they did all. So ultimately, like the government's not for Black people. And I think what we need to understand is that it's time for us to be for ourselves. So what, I guess to end that.
But let me just say before you end it though, is that like when you talk about the campaigns and different things that's being ran now, and I'm just using reparations as an argument as a point to make as far as when we talk racism in both parties, is that when you look at people like Bernie Sanders, and others, I'm just picking him out because he's been dogmatic about it. Oh no, we want to help everybody, all the poor, and because one of the things people always use is everybody. We know when you talk about blessing everybody and doing something for everybody, we still, what they do is they stand on us while we're on the ground. They stand on top of us to climb to the top or whatever. We always will be at the bottom when they talk about everybody, especially when there's inequity already. And if we're right here. And you start moving everybody up, we're still, so it doesn't fix anything at all. Sometimes when they do that and go up, we go down like that, and they still go up. So I don't want to hear this argument with these folks, with these politicians and so on, when they talk about everybody. We're going to do it for everybody. We're going to do it for communities that come. No. Specifically on the Black agenda, what are you going to do? Yeah. And I know we hear that there's a big argument on this, and I understand. But because I was doing this even before all of this, this is just the way I am. Sometimes I won't vote for it. I don't care. If it's two presidential candidates that I don't like both of them, I won't vote for neither one. I'll go vote for everything else. But I won't vote for them. And I'm just, the way I see it is that Black people got to come together as a block of vote and put pressure on these politicians. No, we don't want to hear this about everybody or the poor or communities of color. Specifically for Black people, what is your agenda?
Yeah, no. I'm with it. That makes a lot of sense. So we'll see. One of the things that just leading into this whole idea of racism, the second topic that I was thinking about was when we went to the meeting last week, your community meeting about the use of force law. And the use of force law in California hasn't been updated since 1872.
That's right.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, what does that mean? So if you think about what does that mean? I mean, that means that the way that they imagine how the police, who were designed to chase slaves and and to do the, and imagine Reconstruction happens and you get the 3 people together as a gang. You couldn't have 3 black people together. Black people still had to walk across the street and do all. I mean, you just look at the way that America felt about black people in 1872. And so whatever the mindset of police instruction was in 1872, the expectation is still the same today. And so when you look at like how are police able to kill people simply by saying, I feared for my life. And so I had a discussion with a police officer this week, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it was regarding the way police officers view AB 392, and it doesn't protect police officers. And I said, but why do police officers deserve protection over citizens? And so if you're a police officer and you read AB, and his dilemma, if you will, was in the use of the word, the replacement of the word reasonable for necessary. And I said, well, necessary, if you use force, it should be necessary. And what's the difference between reasonable and necessary? And so we argued about that for about 30 minutes. And what I understood, or what I was telling him, was that if you're going to take somebody's life, because his thing was they're going to make people afraid and they're not going to want to do anything. I'm like, well, people who are afraid to use their service weapons to end a situation that demands a fatal shot, then you shouldn't be a police officer, period. There's no place for you if you're afraid to do that. Like, this is stupid. Like, everybody shouldn't become a police officer. You know what I mean? And so what happens is, and because when you're hurting for—
That's an equalizer though, right?
What is?
Equalizer is that, they should be afraid to use their gun, because a lot of these officers are being trained and coming through the academies, and they're afraid of black people right at the beginning. You see us as danger, believing all the racist narratives that we're dangerous and violent and criminals and thugs. And when they say, hey, I'm getting this to get the bad guy, they see a black face when they talk about the bad guy. No, and so and so when they come into the neighborhood, as soon as they get out of the car, they grab their gun because they're afraid. So let's equalize it. Yeah, you better be very afraid, bro, because if you're using your biases to come in here and pull out that gun, then you better be afraid. But the thing of it is that I was thinking as you're speaking, is that the problem we're still going to have with this, I'm 100% behind it, but the issue we're going to have with this is that these DAs are not going to enforce it. Right. They're going to still allow folks to kill. So we got to start passing laws to hold DAs accountable too, or pass a law to have an independent investigation unit that's either the state, federal, whatever, that comes in and investigate these shootings, because you can't trust the DA's office to do it.
Well, my thing is, like you said, I agree that you should feel some sense of nervousness if something should cross your mind before you pull your gun out and kill somebody. But my thing is this: what AB 392 means necessary is that there are certain, and I use the case of young Tamir Rice, right? These police pull up. This kid is in the park waving a gun around. So they knew that when they came in. So instead of them pulling up, skidding, parking right in front of him, get out and shoot him within 4 seconds of 3 seconds of them pulling up, they killed the little kid. Why don't you get back and see what you got first? Why don't you take a survey and find out what's happening? Don't be so quick to come in. I talked about Philando Castile. I said, if you look at the way Philando Castile was killed, like when police come up to cars, yes, it's dangerous. I get it. Like, so you come up on somebody with tinted windows. You don't know if the person got a 12-gauge shotgun pointed at you. I understand that. So how do we deal with that? And my thing is that instead of coming up and just going right for the window and not paying attention, pay attention to what's going on. Take a look. Philando Castile wouldn't have had enough time to pull his gun out and kill the police officer if he would have. All he had to do was retreat to the rear of the car if he thought he was going to get shot. but he didn't do that.
Mhm.
And so, like, for me, it's like that's what AB 392 says, is that you have to do the things that you need to do to put yourself in a position where you won't be shot. And if you have to use deadly force, then go ahead. So, and I realize, unfortunately, there's going to be discrepancy in people being shot. That's unfortunate. Like, that's going to happen. I understand that there's going to be times where mistakes are made. I get it. Like, that's part of being human. But at the same time, there should be some gear in your head that says, okay, there's something going on. Let me stop. Let me slow down. And let me make sure that I'm doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to cause fear. What that's going to cause, and you should, again, you're going to end somebody's life in this moment. So anyway, I guess at the end of the day, no,
didn't. So.
No, you got to think your eyes are getting bad. Are your eyes getting bad? The bishop's going blind, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying. Baby, you turn the light on.
Maybe it's just making me look dark.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, I'll never get accused of looking too dark. But so ultimately, I think we need to look at the idea of AB 392 and what this means for us to update the police officers' use of force law that hasn't been updated since 1872. That's kind of ridiculous. So we want y'all's voice to be heard. Push the senators, push the people that we need. I should have downloaded this so we could share it, but we'll share it on the page eventually as a picture so people can read and you can look. It's the California Act to Save Lives, AB 392. So you get a chance to look online to check it out. Let's answer a few questions. Let's see if we have any questions before we move on. I don't want to. So we have Ms. Tammy Jackson, the Black Holocaust. She's absolutely talking about totally a Black Holocaust, and it just says Jewish people were paid. We should get paid. The Boston Tea Party, absolutely. People talk about don't revolt, that we shouldn't protest, and they forget totally about the Boston Tea Party. Reparations are due, says my boy Armando. Absolutely. Kenya Taylor. Hey, Kenya, how you doing? She puts a big old heart. They only need us when they want to test their pharmaceuticals. Ain't that the truth? We won't even get into that, but that is very true. That is very true. They do a lot of tests on poor folks. The American government does. Some would say, even Black folks, we have equity. Yes, but it's unfair equity. For example, she says, entertainment, sports, etc. There's still a noose around our neck. When we try to break free, the chair gets kicked from under us. Black union strike. So people think equity means, look, we have Black people that have good jobs. Yes, we do. But when you look at the racial wealth gap,
yeah, exactly.
There's a top 1%, even in the Black. Everybody doesn't. So is Oprah in a good position? Yeah. Is Oprah doing all right for her generations to come? Yes. Yeah. Is President Obama doing all right for his right? Yeah.
So they look at them, but then
but you don't look at all the. So when you look at Black home ownership and purchasing a home is one of the ways to get. Yeah. Is to transfer wealth from family to family, right? You are more valuable when you own a home. Right. When you own a home, you have access to more credit. You have access to more money. Over time, you have equity. And what you see in a lot of Black neighborhoods is that when business, which is predominantly white businesses or others, what happens when communities end up going down and turn to crap is when white people take their business and their money and they leave the community and they drop. And so,
or they like you're talking about the redlining, and you depreciate property like that. Just simple fact because it's a Black community, and so even when worse, and like you have. Last time I checked, it may have gone up, but last time I checked is like a couple years ago that Black home ownership in San Diego was about 30%. 30% of Blacks own homes. It was even lower when it comes to the Black folks having businesses. But even when you look at that 30% that own homes, where do they own their homes? And it is the value of their home at an equal rate as white people in their homes. And so the homes that they own and so on. And I guarantee you there's still an inequity. And so when we talk about even owning homes and land, and then the other thing they did as far as with owning homes or people's wealth, they count the house and then try to count the car and everything else. But if you take away the car and things like that,
well,
it drops.
A car takes away your wealth. A car is a liability until you own it.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, so there's just a lot. There's a lot to be said. So that's true. Equity is not the same. And having a small percentage of the black population that end up being millionaires because of sports and all that, you can't count those into the regular working class folks like myself and I. And so, and one of the things as a Christian, I mean, as Christians, it's biblical for us to leave an inheritance to our children.
Exactly.
It's biblical for us to do that.
That's a blessing. And so down to the third generation.
And if you can't do that, I mean, it's just bad. And so when you see, white kids and white people saying, my parents didn't have it good or whatever, but they were homeowners. And so with that home ownership, they're able to take out second mortgages on their home to pay for your college education or to give you money towards you purchasing your own home, and all those things advantage you. So so that's why the whole notion of pull yourself up by your bootstraps is a faulty notion, because the bootstraps is home ownership. It's equity in your home. It's ability to have loans.
Your capital.
Absolutely. Your ability to have capital. So very true, Tammy. Thank you for that. That's good stuff. Tammy's a real soldier. Love Tammy. She's phenomenal. Hey, what's up, Tom? If you're still there. Vote or get involved with AB 392. It's important. Calendar of events for Black events in San Diego. The reason why I want to just bring this up, and this is just really quick. One of the things I noticed over next weekend is there's a ton of events happening. Somebody else brought this up before, but
I know we have an event.
So many events. You have an event. Fancy has an event. There's a Black Girls Matter event. The YMCA has events. Jackie Robinson. I mean, there's I think Councilmember Montgomery, I believe, has an event next weekend as well. There's a lot of events happening. And I know there's only certain days in the week. There's only so much that we can do, but hopefully
for some reason 27th though.
It's just busy. Yeah. And so one of the things I want to encourage people to do is join Black San Diego. If you're Black, join Black San Diego and download the app so we can stay up on all the events that's happening.
They have an app to it?
They do have an app now, thank God. And so join Black San Diego, grab the app, and get a chance to see what's happening in San Diego, so we can begin to support a lot of that stuff. So here's the Black San Diego app. Let's see if they can see.
I don't know if you can see that. Let me see.
Let's see. Can you fix on it? Maybe you can't.
A little bit.
Can't really see it, but that's okay. Black San Diego app. So just download it and give us an idea what's happening in San Diego, so that we can support the stuff that's happening and begin to show up. Brother Tony that is at Pillars a lot, he had mentioned bringing out a stage and having a battle of the bands, stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool things that we're trying to do, which I think is really good, to be able to bring traffic back in the Southeast and to really be able to have the opportunity to just enjoy our neighborhood, to enjoy the community. I say I don't live in Southeast anymore. Stupid. That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that was a thing I really appreciate. I'm talking as far as church religious wise. My pastor, Bishop Charles Taylor, when he was alive, he was over San Diego. So he had all the churches in the apostolic faith, as far as that was in the PAW. And but one thing he did is that he organized all the pastors in the churches to have a calendar, be on the same calendar. And one of the things that he got the pastors to do at that time, when he died, it all fell apart because of the lack of leadership in the PAW. But one of the things that he did is that he had all the pastors to commit that no two churches would have the same event during the same time. And we had a calendar, we can look at it, we meet, we talk about it, the whole shebang. So we were able, when we planned, like if I was going to plan something for my church, I would go look at the church, the district calendar and say, oh no, they such as having this, we can't do it on this day. We have to do it on another day, and so on and so forth. And when you organize, when you do it, it works. So I was just using that to point out that when we do that, it really works, especially if we're going to support each other. You know what I mean? Because sometimes
maybe there's a way to join, maybe there's a way to join events too. If you have events that, and I think that's part of being in the community, is that you say, hey, as a collective, let's put these two events together
And make it
so
work.
we can bring more people together so that we're not splitting. It's kind of like
And if we can work together,
it's like having two popular people going for the same position politically. What happens is the vote gets split and it gives more power to somebody else. And I think that's people have to make decisions. Fortunately for Saturday next weekend, unfortunately, it makes for a long day if you want to hit these events, but they're all kind of spread out in a sense going towards the end of the day. So just something.
Ours be from 1 to 5. So
yeah. And then there's another one from 4 to 7. There's one from 1 to 3, from 10 to 11 to 1 or 10 to 12, something like that. And so
I saw a few. I was like, whoa. And NAACP is having something too. EXO or something like that.
So there's just a lot. There's just a lot going on. So just something for us to think about. Hopefully there's a way we can work it so that we can get more participation in the things that are happening in San Diego. So that's just my thing. And then last but certainly not least, what we want to talk about is gang documentation and the importance of keeping our community members out of it. So I downloaded and this is your topic. So do you want to take a minute and just kind of talk about a few things that mean something to you with that? Let me just get to a few of these comments real quick first. So Tammy says the use of force is left to the discretion of the individual police officer. It leaves too much room for gray area. It should only be used if an officer is being shot at, period, or life is at risk, not shoot to kill. What happened to beanbags and rubber bullets? Don't they learn? Man. Don't they learn this in the academy? And they do. And here's the thing. And again, this is some of the nuance, and then we'll get to the gang documentation piece. They do use beanbags in certain cases. But there are certain times where use of force is necessary, where you have to use deadly use of force. There are certain times. The question is when, and that's why we got to get involved in this subject. That's why the question is when. And right now there's too much gray area, like she said. And so one of the things, and I don't want to get back on this because we're already off. We want to talk about gang documentation. But one of the things I would love to say is I've been watching these videos, these First Amendment audits, and the police come up and ask people. If you look at the way the police deal with a lot of the stuff that they deal with is, and then we're going to get off this, I promise, but they talk about this stuff. They come up to someone and then they infringe upon your rights. They ask you for your ID. Why do you need my ID? What have I done? There's no crime committed. We're doing. And so they lie to you and say, we have a right to ask you for your ID. You can ask me for it, but I don't have to give it to you. What I want the police chief to do is I want the police chief to get on camera and tell every citizen what their rights are when the police stop you. If you are a passenger in the car, do you have to answer the police? If you're a passenger, when do you have to do that? When are the times that you absolutely have to give? And I want an attorney sitting there with him, because that would empower the community to be able to know what their rights are. And then it would bring accountability to the police officers when they're getting filmed, and then you'd have consequences. But right now, he supports racial profiling. He ain't going to say that, but he supports the principle of that. And why I say that is that not just walking down the street and being stopped, and that's for ID and so on, but when you're driving in your car, do you know that it's illegal for you and I? If they make it illegal for you and I to get in our car and drive a block or 2 blocks down the street, because somewhere along the line you're going to violate some type of traffic law, and they're going to pull you and stop you for that. Whether you swerve a little bit or whatever, it's some stupid thing that they don't do anywhere else. But in our community, we got to drive. We got to be perfect drivers to do that. And so they make it illegal for you to drive your car when you're black, because what happened is they'll find a way to pull you over. And I talked to Chief Nislite about this. He supports that, because they feel that that's the way they investigate crimes, and that's the way they get, these guns, all the other stuff they claim that they get off the street. But my thing,
so that's the argument they use.
But my thing is, tell people where the Constitution.
He ain't going to do that.
I get it, but that
you said do it.
But to me,
calling on him to do it.
That is responsible. It's responsible policing for you to tell a community member where their rights are, what their rights are. That's responsible. And this is the reason why there's so much distrust. So we'll get off that. But
you need to get a black police officer to do it. Maybe we need black chief. Because I don't know if that's going to change anything, but
I think we need leadership with courage.
Because what I found and what I've seen among officers when it comes to telling people their rights, Black officers will be more honest and open about telling people what their rights are and what they can and can't do. I've seen I remember one time I was listening when a Black officer was talking to some youth, and I was listening on the side, and I had a booth, and he was at another booth, and they all came over there, and he was talking to them, and the stuff that he was telling them, I'm like, whoa, he's telling them that. And after he got finished with him, I was like, hey, I like your presentation. I said, for a police officer, you know, I find it amazing that you're actually, he said, no, they need to know.
Yeah,
they need to know.
And we'll see. I mean, who knows if they're going to be.
But Chief Nisman is not going to do that because, you know, he's more on the lines with white supremacy. And he believes in, he upholds that system.
Yeah.
You know, he'll make you think. He'll walk the streets and shake hands and make you think he cares. Right. He'll come on the news and make it seem like he cares, but he don't care.
I just wish that they would. I think that would build a lot of trust for him to be able to tell people, here's what your rights actually are. And that's what they're supposed to do. And it's unfortunate, but people, I think we need to realize that it's power to the people. Like, we are a government for the people and by the people. So we need to say something. Eddie Price says, you can leave an inheritance. Game. If you can do that, if you can leave an inheritance, that's game on right there. Stephen Peace says, if every school in San Diego gets $12,000 per child, and every school in the Black community has 4,000 students, leave that school, and every Black community has 4,000 students, leave that school, how much money leaves and goes to build better schools elsewhere? That's a lot. I mean, what is, if a school gets $12,000 per kid, times 4,000 kids, that's $48 million that leaves the community. So for every child that leaves, $12,000 leaves. So that's something to think about. And I would love to have somebody, and Tom Lemon says, hey, what's up, Tom? Eventually we want to bring people on that can sort of talk about these things educationally, because there's a lot, like school choice, some of the other stuff. There's a lot of nuances, man. We're just hitting the very top. I mean, we're just scratching the surface of a lot of these issues, and we realize that they're way deeper. Eventually we want to have time to get into one session. Maybe at some point we'll bring people on to specifically talk about a particular thing. Yeah. And we're looking at, you guys, just so y'all know, we're looking at the idea of having some group discussions too, having some panel-like discussions and stuff too. We're in the process of kind of doing that. Having full-time jobs and doing all the stuff that we're doing, it's just difficult to get that kind of stuff going. But just so you all know, that's the idea of this, is for us to bring more community members in to be able to have these discussions. Eddie says, maybe one day we can have an event at the Black Firefighters building. You know, that's a very good point. We're going to get to the gang documentation, but answering these questions. We ain't forgot. I'm good. And we're doing all right on time. We got 15 minutes. Yes, we knew. So the Black Firefighter building is that's the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, Brothers United, 3601 Ocean View Boulevard. That's it's actually listed as a historic site right now, but there's some we're having some issues with being able to do the restoration on it, because the city now owns the building. We're actually paying a lot of money to have the building right now. And so we're working on that. Dr. Blair from BayPAC said that he wanted to get involved to help us to get that fixed up. But the idea, the goal for us is to have that as a place that's open on a regular basis, so people can come in and look at Black history in our fire department in San Diego, and then also to have a meeting place for community members to have meetings. So you're right, Eddie, we definitely need to do that, and we've been talking about it, and we will. Tammy says we need more fun things. There's no question about it. We do, and we're going to work on that. And then what do they define as a gang today? And we're going to talk about that in a second here. Is the use of force, they say, as brutality? I don't know how to ask. Is use of force the same as brutality? It can be. It can be. It's not, though. Technically, use of force, if done correctly, is not considered brutality. Brutality is when use of force is used when it's not supposed to be. I don't know what the legal. I don't know what the legal definition is. But when we talk about police brutality, it's like the video that everybody showed of the young 15-year-old kid that got pepper sprayed and slammed and got his face. He got his face pushed into the ground. So that's police brutality. Police brutality. Yeah, no doubt. So
hit him and stuff like that. 15 years old. Yeah, I've been through that though, so I know they do it.
Yeah. You know? Well, I mean, it's unfortunate, but listen, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, at the end of the day, if we don't say nothing, nothing's going to change.
Exactly.
Like, we got to stop complaining and start
Exactly.
doing more participating, right?
Mhm.
And everybody has busy lives. I get it. But I think as we learn
Yeah.
to be more of a community and understand how important it is for us to stand up and to act, I think it's good for us. So lastly, can you get on this this gang documentation?
Yeah,
thing?
I thought about that because I was talking with Pastor Sandoval yesterday at the Hoover event, and he had told me that.
I heard the kids did a great job on that.
Oh man, they're awesome, man.
Shout out to Hoover,
it's awesome.
to the teachers and all the people.
They
that helped
organized, they got that together,
Good job.
man.
Good job,
They,
Hoover.
yeah,
Good
absolutely,
job. Good
absolutely, man. And they did everything. They ran that thing, man.
Good job.
And so they doing real good. I wish we had it like that when I was coming up in high school.
Yeah.
But I was yesterday at the event. I was talking with Pastor Jesus Sandoval, who's the executive director of the Commission on Gang Prevention and Intervention, and he's telling me some guy was down doing a documentary about I guess dealing with gang documentation, and I guess yesterday he went to Chicano Park, but I guess he also interviewed them. I don't know, the day before, whenever interviewed him, he took him around in the community. They talked with Dr. Hood. Who's the chairman of the commission, gang commission, things like that. But the issue, that's why I wanted to try to get Genevieve on. They were talking about gang documentation. I don't know what the issue was and what they were talking about with that and so on, but that is a big issue when you talk about gang documentation. And so that's why I want to come over, because when he told me that, I was just dealing with that. And because with the youth that, I mentor and things like that, one of the things, I'll give you an example, one of the things that I don't do with youth that I'm mentoring and that I'm working with, and I know that is highly at risk or involved in that, and you try to pull them out, especially if they're undocumented, they're under 18 years old. I try to be very careful not to take pictures with them and post them on Facebook. I'd be very careful in trying to not allow them to be seen with me in public somewhere where the police or somebody can see, because they'll end up getting documented, because if he with Bowser, then we know that and then they'll start watching them. But also when I work with these young folks, I go to I have them right there. Hey, follow me, let me follow you, accept me, or whatever, on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is. And you can see some of the things that they do on there. And then you got to educate them, like, hey, bro, the stuff you're doing right there, they can document you. You can get documented as a gang member. And then you try to get them to understand the impact of that and how that affects you. And then I try to get them to understand, hey, they may not do it now, but as soon as you turn 18, they're going to have you on there. But it's a little more challenging now because of laws we got passed and so on, where they have to send out letters, they have to notify you and all those type of things. But they build cases on you. And that's what I'm trying to get youngsters to understand. They build cases on you, man. They right now might have a lot of video clips saved up on you. And so and you got to be careful of that. And I think we got to let our parents know, and our mentors know, and the young people who are impacted. Most of the young folks ain't on Facebook. Like this young, man, I don't fool with Facebook. So a lot of these youngsters, they don't fool with Facebook. They're on Snapchat and Instagram. But we as adults and those that are around these young people need to really help them to understand that certain things you shouldn't do on Facebook anymore, because if you do it, even though you're just having fun, you're doing what you want to do, it can get you in a lot of trouble. It can get you in a lot of trouble later on in the future. And it shouldn't happen, because like somebody said, what does it mean to be a gang member?
Well,
and it's not, and let me just say this. It's not against the law. The Supreme Court ruled that it's not against the law to be a gang member if you want to be there. If that's what you choose to be, it's against the law to commit crimes, but it's not against the law to be a part of a gang. That's freedom of association. You can associate with whoever you want to be. And I think that, the STEP Act that's over 30 years, that's 30 years old, should be done away with. And the STEP Act stands for Street Terrorism Enforcement Prevention Act, which what the paper that he has, it defines what a gang is, have gang crimes on there. Then if you keep reading it, it has the enhancements and all those different things you get for crimes that you may commit. But they need to get rid of the STEP Act, because it only impacts communities of color, and it highly impacts Black people, especially when you look at how they're documenting. They're documenting more Blacks than they're documenting any other race right now. Well, and it's wrong.
Well, let's look real quick here. So criminal street gang defined. This is what a criminal street gang is. A gang is a group of 3 or more persons who have a common identifying sign, symbol, or name, whose members individually or collectively engage in or have engaged in a pattern of definable criminal activity, creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation within the community. So 3 or more persons with a sign or some other identifying mark, colors, gang sign, XYZ, right? And a pattern, a disruptive pattern, something that they would define as crime or being a threat. So here's a criteria to determine gang profile. So this is what they use to determine whether you fit, whether they're going to document you or not. And it says 2 of the following criteria need to be found through investigation, coupled with the officer's training and expertise. Now, here's the thing: training and expertise, right? You know. Anyway, let's not get.
And let me just interject this while you're reading this, so people can understand. Now, remember, this is only for Cal games. What the database that they put you in, but you need to understand that all these law enforcement agencies have their own databases outside of Cal gangs, okay? And they collect information on you. How you think they collect it? When they get enough information, they enter into Cal because they're collecting. If they're investigating, they have you on surveillance, and they have this data that they're collecting already on you even before it entered data. So that you have all these separate databases also.
So here's how they identify you as a gang member, right? Criteria to determine gang profile. A subject can be entered into the Cal Gang database when 2 of the following criteria are found.
And in San Diego, if City of San Diego is 3.
3.
Okay. Yeah.
The only single criteria approved for entry is an in-custody jail classification interview. Single criteria approved for entry is an in-custody jail classification interview. Now,
and let me just say something about it. I know we short on time. When I got locked up and they interviewed me, and the guy I have down here that you're West Coast Crip, you know. So when you're talking about an interview, they already have you documented even before you get in there. They already have that data and that information. And when they interview you or whatever, and of course, and I've seen young men that have this, you know, if they from Lincoln or from Colts or whatever, or live in those communities, that's who they're going to want to hang around with, because they ain't going to want to get jacked or whatever because I don't bang. You're going to have to do something. But then that forces them to get documented even though they don't gang bang. You know what I mean?
Well, so here's what they say. Subject has admitted to being a gang member. So if when the police pull you over, this is why you need to understand your rights.
But what does that mean? Exactly. But what does that mean too? But I hear you.
When the police pull you over and they do a field interview, it's called a FI. They do a field interview. So they want to they're looking to act. That's why you got to know your rights. So and you have a right to remain silent because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Exactly. So when you get pulled over and they start,
give your ID and that's it.
And you don't even got to give your ID unless you're suspected of committing a crime. Unfortunately, Black people are probably known that it's going to get turned up and something bad is going to happen. So this idea of us knowing our rights and enforcing our rights usually gets us in trouble with no consequence to the police. But you don't have to answer any questions unless you're suspected, unless they can articulate a crime. You don't have to say that. So they come up to you and say, subject is admitted. So if you say, yes, I'm a blood and I'm from wherever, or yeah, I'm a Crip, I'm from wherever. Perfect. That's one of the criteria. But
that's a problem. Also, there's a problem there. I understand. But the problem, because if police, this happen all the time. Hey, where you from, man?
Yeah.
I'm from over the coast.
That's why.
That don't mean I'm banging. That don't mean that I'm claiming. That's where I live. That's where I grew up with.
But once we understand what they are getting,
I understand.
Then it's incumbent upon us to answer correctly.
For sure. But I think we got to balance it out. And I'm with you, but we got to balance it out from the perspective that's why we need to get rid of this stuff.
Of course.
Because it's bogus.
But until we do,
yeah, exactly. Don't tell them nothing.
Because even if you're trying to provide clarity, it's subject to the officer's expertise. If this person ain't never lived in the community and all your expertise is from classrooms, whatever, then you may misunderstand. So you have to be.
And that's what I tell. That's what the kids I mentor. That's what I tell them,
because they write the stuff down, and then you have to try to prove what you meant by saying that. So don't say that.
It's survival.
Subject has been arrested with known gang members for offenses consistent with gang activity. So you're hanging around somebody you meet. If you get arrested and you're around other gang members, then that's a criteria.
So when your brother or your cousin,
it don't matter who.
I know, I know. Your brother, your cousin,
if they do,
your best friend you live across the street, you grew up with.
It don't matter.
You get stopped with them. And I've had people that I've talked to that experienced that, like, man, they have me documented. I don't even bang. You know, my cousin or whoever, and I got stopped with them a few times, and now they got me down on database. That's not good police work.
It's sad, it's stupid, but that's why they got all these hundreds of 4-month-old babies in Cal gangs right now. That's how.
Yeah, they used to. I think they cleaned that up. Hopefully,
hopefully they did. So, subject has been identified as a gang member by a reliable informant or source. So what makes a reliable, what's a reliable informant? You know what I'm saying? Like, get out of here. So somebody can say, oh yeah, Bishop Bowser's a gang member because they trust me for whatever reason. That's one criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So all it takes is you being arrested with somebody, even if you were let go. So you were arrested with a gang member, and then now somebody goes, oh yeah, Bowser's a gang member.
But I should be able to challenge that, right? I mean, like if they come and say that I'm documented and this is why, and I want to appeal that and go to, then you need to bring that person, that confident informant in here and testify.
Because you have a right to face your
or
accuser.
Take me off the database.
Now, in order for you to get off the database, you can challenge that, but it's going to cost you. It costs $25 or whatever. There's a filing fee of $25. So they make you pay for the decisions that they make with your life. With $25 don't seem like a lot, but if you ain't got nothing, it's a lot. And you shouldn't have to pay to clear your name. Like, you're innocent until proven guilty. So subject has been identified as a gang member by an untested informant.
That's even worse, right?
Golly. I mean, just come on. Subject has been seen affiliating with documented gang members.
That's everybody, man. That's a whole
basically all of these. So if you walk down Salola, if you walk down Skyline, if you walk down Market Street, if you're on Hilltop,
you documented.
You're in trouble. You know, if you walk anywhere in Emerald Hills,
you documented, bro.
Subject has been seen frequenting gang areas.
Mm-hmm. What is a gang area? See, that's a problem that we have in our community.
Listen to that language, bro. Yeah. So you mean to tell me
houses?
But wait, I'm just like, wait a second. Wait. So you mean to tell me when someone comes to police an area, they can legitimately go home, and instead of saying I am in Skyline Hills or whatever, they can say I work in a gang area. Yeah,
but now they narrow it down to blocks and streets too. You know, like if a lot of folks hang out where I grew up, 25th Street, Pat Liquors used to be, or Mudlands or whatever. If I'm seen up there hanging out or whatever, and I don't bang, then they can say because you're hanging out there and there's a lot of gang members hang out up there, you're a gang member, and that's wrong. Or Memorial Park, we hang out there all the time.
Ridiculous. Let's run through these other. Just a couple more, and then we're going to quit because it's just
what time?
We're actually at an hour right now, so we got to go.
Okay.
So seen frequent in the gang area. Subject has been seen wearing gang dress. So if you wear a red sweatshirt, a blue sweatshirt, a green sweatshirt, a gray sweatshirt, if you wear subject has been known.
And even police admit they don't, folks don't.
And the youngsters and got you wise. Now everybody wears different colors, don't even matter no more. They done switched up the game. Subject that is known to have gang tattoos. A gang tattoo. That
don't mean nothing.
What's a gang tattoo? Yeah. In custody classification interview, all others require 2 criteria.
But then custody one doesn't.
Yeah. So look up. If you look up Cal gangs and you can look on the public defender's website, they'll give you this information to look up what it means to be documented. We want to send a huge shout out to my DA for life, the Honorable, you know what I'm saying, Genevieve Jones Wright. She is my DA for life, but she is a part of this, the gang commission. And she goes through and combs through this.
I was on that committee when I was part of the commission too.
And thank God for people like her that have a real passion to exonerate and to the folks that don't need to be exonerated. Are there certain people who are gang members that are menaces to the community or whatever?
But here's the thing, though, even if they are,
there's always an outlier. But the point is that what is happening is that they're using this as a dragnet to get people caught up in stuff that they shouldn't be caught up with, and then you treat every single person that meets 2 of these 3 criteria. Because if you live in Lincoln Park, if you live in neighborhood, if you live in West Coast, if you live in Skyline, if you live in Emerald Hills, you're going to be around somebody possibly that's a gang member, and you're going to go to that area quite frequently if your grandmother lives there. So there's two. So it's just stupid. So we.
But here's the real big problem to documenting though. I mean, if that was it and that was it, that wouldn't be a problem. But the real problem with gang documentation is the enhancement laws, right? So when you document it now, you commit a crime. Or get arrested for a crime and you have to plead to that crime, you get enhancements. And look at some of the crimes: assault with deadly weapon or by means of force likely to produce bodily injury, robbery, homicide, sale, possession for sale, transportation, manufactured, offer for sale, to offer to manufacture controlled substances, right? Of course, it says shootings at an inhabited dwelling, discharging or permitting to discharge a firearm, arson. They have arson on there, intimidation of witnesses, grand theft, burglary, rape, looting, money, kidnapping, mayhem. Oh, these are what are considered gang crimes. And so if a person documents a gang member, they go commit a robbery and they get arrested for that because they document a gang member, they can get enhancement. So you have a white person document, white person isn't. They both commit the same crime, robbery. The black person go end up getting 6 years for that because he's a gang member, and the white person end up getting 18 months or 3 years or whatever the charges. But to help you understand how they enhance, and then as you're convicted of more crimes, you can even look at strikes and you can end up getting life in prison based on getting striked out.
And then my brother Armando, my brother Armando said the reason why they do that is then once you go to prison, you're classified as a particular gang member, and the prison ends up getting more money for the fact that they have to house more criminals and some of these other things. It's all
everything about money.
It's all about money. And so, ultimately, like one of the things, and this go back to my original thing about the government. If we look at the 80s, even before that, because Nixon was the one that really did the war on drugs, the tough on crime, that whole tough on crime, war on drugs, they married. They're the same thing. And then you look at it, got carried through to Ronald Reagan, Reaganomics. And you look at this is because that's my whole thing. If you look at the Republican Party and what they've done, it was the Republicans that introduced tough on crime. It was the Republicans that introduced the war on drugs. And that war on drugs is the same war on drugs where Oliver North in the Iran-Contra scandal, where he was bringing in drugs and so Freeway Rick Ross, who ended up going to prison, he's the real Rick Ross. He went to prison for a couple decades or whatever for a crime that he was in collusion with Oliver North. And what did Oliver North get? A book deal and speaking engagements.
And
that was the Republicans that did that. That was not the Democrats.
But here's the thing though, with that though, when you talk about tough on crime, you have to go to the Crime Bill 94 that the Democrats and Clinton. But here's the thing: working up to that time, they were in competition to try to see who was the toughest. Of course, the Republicans outdid them, but they were trying to be tough too, even with the crack laws and all that kind of stuff. The black Congress folks are the ones that actually headed that up and so on to get that bill passed. So they're guilty on both sides. And they buy into the racist narrative and run with it.
That's the key, and I think that's the biggest thing. And we got to go because we're over time. But that's the biggest.
Thank you for viewing.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you all for coming. But maybe one day we'll move it up to 90 minutes, or we'll just learn this. That's what we probably need to do. An hour is a long time. So for those of you who stayed, even for most of the time, thank you. I wish we could get to all the questions, but we can't. My boy Chad says, Jason, with that criteria, you should be documented. He's funny. Red flip-flops. Tammy says red flip-flops.
Let's get rid of this.
My boy WJR, he said he should have been documented. He should have. What would you say is a better way to gather the data? We can't get into that. Thanks for doing what you do, Tammy. Thank you, sis. We appreciate you. You always are a supporter. You're faithful. We appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to do every Sunday from 6 to 7, the Bishop and I, and just talk about community issues. We are moving towards a different format. We would love to have some panel discussions. We want to have some things in community settings where we can have
spread the word.
Spread the word. Let people know. We do want to get more ideas. We want more help. We'd love to eventually get people to engineer this so that it could be done the right way, shared on multiple platforms. We just want to make this a community discussion. There's no way you and I got enough stuff to do anyway.
Right.
We don't need to do this to try to gain anything. This is just something to try to like bring a regular local
And
community feel on
go
the
read
right
that
things.
article on smart street lights.
Oh,
Because they
gosh,
got us
that's
under
a whole-
surveillance on that.
We'll talk about smart street
Yeah.
lights next week. But
Yeah.
thank you all for joining. We appreciate you. We love you guys a lot. Enjoy your week and love, peace. And for those of you who celebrate Easter today, happy Easter. And we'll just end with that.